Welcome on this first edition of Maven Chronicles. I am your host, Grace Mayele, and you're watching Mayele TV. Business is all about character. And on today's show, I'm so happy to have this guest beside me. Not only is he a good friend of mine, but he definitely knows about making something out of nothing and building something that you love and making it your passion. He is the creative director and the founder of a fashion brand titled Pride and Ego. His name is Thierry Kasende. Thierry, how are you?
I'm great, thank you for asking.
That's lovely. So to my viewers, run us down. What is your story? Who is Thierry Kasende and what is he about?
So Thierry Kasende is, like you said, the creative director of the fashion label Pride and Ego. I am just an entrepreneur, just trying to create a fashion line that I'm very passionate about and trying to offer something to the fashion world, the fashion industry, more specifically to men who enjoy fashion, who enjoy quality, who enjoy great fitting labels. So we're just trying to put our mark in the fashion industry. So that's pretty much what I'm about in terms of how I relate to my brand.
That's amazing. It's so funny that you're talking about how you're creating a label, a fashion brand for men, something that men can connect and relate to. And it brings me back to something that Tom Ford, one of the world's most inspirational fashion designers, once said. He said that there's a fine line between Tom Ford, the man, versus Tom Ford, the brand. Is that something that you can relate to?
I absolutely relate to that as looking at his standpoint from him being a woman fashion designer.
Right.
There has to be a fine line because he's designing for a different market, a different genre of people. For me, I would say that there isn't a line between the brand and me as a person because I think that I am the brand.
That's right.
So my clothes and my styles and my designs basically reflect my own expression of what I think my experiences have been and what my expression of fashion is and what it should be for men. So for me, I try to live and embody my own brand because I think it makes it a lot more easier to put my design forward because it's just a self-expression of who I am as a person, and hopefully people can relate to that and find something that they can grab onto and market it that way.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that because people often kind of bypass the importance of personal branding. Like a lot of times as a fashion designer, some people don't kind of separate the line between being the artist and being the business. So it's really interesting to hear you actually make the connection between the two, which leads me to ask you, where did the concept of Pride and Ego come from? Because when I hear Pride and Ego, because you mentioned that's the title of your brand, it's a statement, Pride and Ego. Why Pride and Ego? It's a statement, but I also look at your brand as a lifestyle. So could you please tell us a bit, where did you come from that?
Well, the concept of designing the line came from just my passion for fashion. I love fashion. I've been, working the fashion retail management industry for nearly 10 years now. So being around and being surrounded by fashion, being around, creative people, designers, buyers, and all that stuff, I think it waked a little passion in me to want to do something for myself. In the context of how the name came about, there's actually a little joke behind it.
Oh, really? We want to laugh. Don't you guys want? I want to laugh. Don't you guys want to laugh?
Loving fashion, always wanted to dress up and always wanted to dress the part. Sometimes people took it the wrong way and took it as being arrogant and being a little cocky and being a little too prideful.
Well, you're always polished.
I try to be. I think men should try to be a little bit polished.
Absolutely.
So in that context, it was sort of a way for me to get back at people, like finding a name that's sort of really, like you said, is a statement and it really stands up. But behind the name Pride and Ego there's a more refined definition of what pride and ego means.
That's right.
The word ego is a Latin word that just means I, which is myself. And pride, I think, is self-explanatory. So the line basically just embodies the self-awareness, the awareness of oneself, just being in tune with who you are and translating that through how you dress. So for me, not only did they reflect my personality, but also tied in with the concept that we use every time we put a design forward. So that's a little history behind it.
I really love the precision that you're giving us, because you're not only are you driven, but you're so clear on what your brand is. Like you're so clear on what your brand purpose is. And you just mentioned, you said the design process. So for people who are not really fashion oriented, that don't know much about how you go from concept to creation, can you kind of describe the general process you go through to design and realize your clothing and your brand?
The design process is a very personal one, I find. There's again, you have to be clear with what the brand is. The usual process I use is, and most designers use, is to sort of familiarize yourself with who the person you're designing for is, who are they?
You have to have a target
You have a
niche.
target.
That's
you know,
right.
Where do they eat? What do they do? Where would they work? You know,
That's
on a
right.
day off, what would they do? So using that process, it's a very creative. I think it's the most important place because your clothes will have to translate through that entire process.
Absolutely, yes.
So for me, using myself as, like I said, I feel like I am the brand, and I use myself as a benchmark for what it is that I'm putting forward in designing. I just sort of stay true to that, stay true to the things that I would wear, stay true to what I want my closet and my wardrobe to look like. So in the designing process, I just use myself as a reference point. It gets a little tricky where, you know, sometimes...
You're a perfectionist.
Exactly, right? And sometimes you kind of sidetrack because you may feel differently on
That's
certain
right.
days, right? So your designs may reflect how you feel at that period of time. So what I do sometimes is you create a vision board. A vision board is just
Yes.
placing a few things that kind of remind you of where you align yourself and what you want to do and how you want to do it. So my billboard, I have people like Kanye West, for example.
Yeah.
If I want to design something that lives up to the, you know, the label pride and ego, I don't think there's any more ego
Absolutely.
and
He's a
pride
great
than
reflection of
Kanye
that, yes.
West would be, right?
Absolutely.
So these are the steps that you take. And once you've done that and you've put a few designs together, there's revision processes. You have to revise them and make sure they align each other. And also make sure that each piece kind of works with the entire collection. You know, you don't
That's
want to
right.
build a blazer that doesn't go with a pair of
There
pants
has
that you
to
put
be
together. There has to be
consistency.
consistency,
That's
and there
right.
has to be, it has to work well together. Once you have that, then if you're a designer to the full extent of the word, then you start putting the collection together yourself. But for me as a creative director, I take that and hand it over to a team of seamstresses, of tailors who sort of start putting that process into a physical...
Into fruition, exactly.
Exactly. And then after that is, again, another revision process.
Well, it's funny, you talk about vision, you talked about vision board, and it's so funny. I personally am a huge advocate of vision boards. I think it's important for you to be able to not just say you want to give birth to your dreams, but be able to enlist them and visualize it, because you have to see it, and it's also a process. And I love that the fact that you broke it down in such a way. So what exactly are the things that do sparkle?
Would you like to promote a social event, a music album, or a project in the Afro-Caribbean community? Even more, you just open a new business. It could be a drugstore or a barbershop, and you would like to attract more customers. The solution is quite simple. Buy an advertising space on Malaika TV and receive a bigger visibility in all of the Afro-Caribbean community in Canada. For further information, please contact us on d.finance@malaikatv.com.
You are watching MalaikaTV.com, the first Afro-Caribbean web television in Canada. New shows, new content, and a new image. Watch Malaika TV and enjoy your time.
Pour la prochaine étape. En tout cas, Entre hommes, c'est du solide, l'émission la plus regardée par la communauté afro-caribéenne. N'hésitez pas à contacter publicité@malaikatv.com pour vos annonces, pour vos publicités. On est là pour vous. Une fois de plus, vous pouvez voir les beautés qui sont là. On voit de l'art.
So you heard it from the main man already. Malaika TV, Entre Hommes, it's topping the charts right now. Very highly viewed. So if ever you want to go ahead and pass a message, don't hesitate. Publicité@malaikatv.com. That's essentially the address, and we'll get your product out there. I mean, we're big. We're talking Afro-Caribbean big.
Not just say you want to give birth to your dreams, but be able to enlist them and visualize it, because you have to see it, and it's also a process. And I love that the fact that you broke it down in such a way. So what exactly are the things that do sparkle your inspiration?
At first, I thought my drive was a drive for perfection, but I realized that's impossible.
That's right.
Once you get to a certain point, there's always more. There's always the
more.
other step, right? So for me, the concept is just we've actually incorporated this concept into our business culture, which is just one word, which is excellence. To do everything with excellence. It doesn't matter if you're designing something or sending an email to our correspondents, making sure that everything is done to a certain level of excellent. You may never reach perfection, but you can do every single step in an excellent way that would leave a mark and that would grab people's attention to the details you're putting towards it.
And what do you find are the unique and original characteristics of your designs?
Their simplicity. It's hard nowadays to go into a shop and try to find a plain white dress shirt. everything has been tweaked and tuned and everything is a little bit more extravagant now. I'm just trying to take it back to the essence of just being classic and simple and just, using your personality to put through the characteristics as opposed to trying to embody it with the extravagance of your outfit.
You make it sound so easy, and I like that. You make it sound so easy.
It is easy if you are true to yourself.
Absolutely.
It is easy if you know who you are.
True.
It will translate through your clothes. I find some people, again, fashion is a means of expression. Some people are looking for attention, so they seek that attraction by the extravagance of clothes. But someone who's really comfortable with who they are, you notice that they're very more toned down, and they know that who they are will, put them forth.
And going in that line, what do you find is the most difficult aspect of running your own label? Because you've worked with a lot of apparel companies. You have a huge backing in retail. But when you consider issues like advertising, like financing, and just the whole production, how difficult do you find it when you're going into your own label? Because it's pretty bold.
It is very bold. It's difficult, but I think there's always a way. I'm a strong advocate of personal development. I think that whatever challenges or tasks may be put before you, I think all you have to do is just kind of increase your level of professionalism, increase your level of knowledge, increase your level of attention to detail. So as much as it is difficult, I think that the most important thing to work on is yourself and finding how to align yourself with the level of difficulty.
And I love how you mentioned that the best thing to do is work on yourself. And speaking of which, since I know you're still in the midst of new developments, like you're taking your brand to new heights. So on that what is next for you, Thierry? Like, what do you hope to achieve in the industry 5 to 10 years from now? Where can we expect to see you?
We're going to conquer the world.
Yes, sir.
Just kidding. We really just want to establish a recognizable brand, a brand that's synonymous for, like I said, quality, perfect fit, attention to details, but most importantly, that personal relationship with our customers. Not only our customers, but every other people that we'll be dealing with throughout the process, just to really establish that level of professionalism, excellence. I'm not so much worried about how we fit with comparison to other people.
Right.
We just want to know that what we're doing really stands out and we're doing to the best of our abilities.
I want to keep you going, but if I could just get a few grabs from you, Maven wisdom here. If you could look at our audience and tell them, what would you say in terms of, especially for those who may not have the capital to build a brand, who may not be where they want to be, what would be your advice, your Maven
advice? My Maven wisdom would be to look for opportunities and maximize them. They may be at the least expected place, but just be in tune with what's around you, who's around you. The next person you might be on the bus may be the person you need to grab onto to get you to the next step. So be aware and be attentive to your surroundings.
You heard it from your man himself, Thierry Kasende, the founder and CEO of the fashion brand Pride and Ego. He looks like he may be full of pride. He may look like he's full of ego,
humble.
but he's the most humblest being that I know. And you need to find out more about him. You can follow him on Twitter at Pride and Ego, and they could also go to your website.
Absolutely.
Which is?
www.prideandego.com.
Thierry, it was such a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure to be here.
Look forward to having you. Make sure you tune in next week on Maven Chronicles. I am your host, Grace Mayele, and be sure to tune in at MayeleTV.com. See you next time. Thank you so much,
Thank you for having me.
Too, another thing is you have to give your team a reason to be motivated. I personally believe people should be naturally motivated, but at the end of the day, when you're working for an organization, it's like working a 9 to 5. Who have worked a 9 to 5, any job, there's always going to be a reason that's going to spark you more so than others. You're going to have those good days, you're going to have those rough days. That's just how life is, right? Just like when you're building your business.
This show is brought to you by our official sponsor. For more information, visit